yeah.
I like that.
You guys are not ready for this, right? You got to dance for Mario, but this is a special event. If you guys don't know Pack Stereo Live 2015, this is our first special event of the year, and we're going to bring you something that deals with controversy, coercion, and all those things that wrap you around the world as we live in. I just love the idea that I can sit up here and work with a real knight, you know. Yeah, I just feel special for right now, you know. I get an hour with somebody who I just want to be an intern, but I'm gonna set you guys up later. I'm gonna just let the music play for a second because there are special people in the room today. You know that, right? Now, you want me to switch the camera? I'm not gonna do it yet. I'm waiting. I get to do this because I want to keep you in mystery. I want to, you know what? Let me just say this. You guys like music? Then you're gonna like this story. Have you seen American Federale? Then you'll like this story. Have you ever heard of Michael Douglas Carlin? Then you'll love this story. And if you know Miko tried to say, I'm coming to crash the live show, and I said, you can't come, it's men only. And she said, and she gave me the finger, but not the finger you thought. Not the finger you thought. Not the,
oh gosh,
you crashed, and I appreciate it.
Oh, you trying to start some stuff.
I'm just,
you know, I was pleasantly
you just
invited.
gave it.
I love it.
Remember, the finger you gave me was waving like this.
Yeah,
There you go. Right? Okay,
what's his name? Like Blake Griffin? Look, you got it. Oh, no, you didn't. With an attitude. Neck rolling and everything. Close your mouth, Vic. Close your mouth.
Now, I get to talk like this until the music, you know, cuts off, and then Mario, our CEO, takes over and run this bitch. I'm sorry to go there, but that's what he does.
Did he say the B word?
I get to play for the intro of the music.
Wow, diva.
I get to. And it's about that time, you guys. Get ready.
Yes, it is.
Mario's about to bring.
When Michael hits the studio, it's always about relevance.
That's right, Mario. Get it, Mario.
We're getting ready. Pulling in all those subsidiaries, everybody. We get ready for the New Year's edition of Pack Stereo Live. Good friend of ours in the studio. Talking about his latest.
You know, it's so hard. I want to ask questions, but if I do, I have no patience. I'm sorry. I have no patience. And I have to do everything to refrain from talking to Michael before a show. I can't. I would just want to pull everything. And then after the show, Mario gets to take him, and then they go in their powwow, and then I have no time. So this time I'm breaking it up.
That's a sad story.
No, it's a good way. It's a good thing. I mean, he'll have plenty of time. Because I got a lot of questions because of my personal dealings with someone. You know, knowing someone. So I got some questions for Michael as well.
Get ready, you guys. We had our playtime, the intro, giving you guys all an opportunity to sit in, and actually, if you have comments or anything about the subject we're about to get into,
that's right, get to that chat room.
Get to that chat room, baby.
Miko will speak to you.
There you go, Mario.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the first 2015 edition of Pack Stereo Live. Thank you. And you know what? What a better way to start the year with reminding ourselves sometimes about the things that are relevant, issues, you know. We tend to get lost in sports a little bit. And sometimes you have to start to question, even though I love escapism as much as anybody, you have to question sometimes the amount of relevance and time we place on something. And I do it. I'm not, that's coming from someone who does it.
That's right.
I'm just saying, because if you're watching football from 10 to 8 on Sunday, it's too much. So for 2015 in Pack Stereo Live, we were going to start it. We didn't have anything planned. And in talking to Victor, we were just getting things sort of set up. And then, like so many opportunities, this opportunity actually came to us.
That's right.
When once again, good friend Michael Douglas Carlin reached out to us about bringing his latest. So, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I have to give the applause again. Welcome.
That's
and I'm going to tell you about him.
Ma'am.
Michael Douglas Carlin, everybody. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. We've got the whole Pack Stereo Morning Coffee crew. First of all, the wonderful, wonderful hot chocolate mistress of chat over there. Our co-host, the mostest. Everybody, that's Miko Williams, everybody.
Thank you.
I know. Get some eye candy. Michael and I know how to work that.
I'm teary.
Over there, the master of three switchers, the man with the voice, and the only person in this world that I know who can work 3 video switchers while being live on the air. My partner in crime, Mr. Victor Allen.
What's up, everybody?
Yeah, talented.
That's right.
Revolutionary.
There we go. Roll game. Okay.
Okay, now let me set this up, because sometimes it's easy. People have a history. And besides all of his entrepreneurial ventures, of which he is extensively involved and has when you live like Michael does, how do I say it? He has multiple projects in various stages of development. Always, right? Multiple projects in various stages of development. So I have to give you that kind of premise, because as he does things, it makes it different to me when you are aware of his history, and then you look at his history, and then you come forward and look at his latest work. So I asked him when he came by, because you know how it is sometimes with internet television, we had to pull in all the overseas connections and everything, and so I had to ask. I said, let me just tell him a little bit about you, because I think as you're learning, and I'm learning too, about his latest venture, it helps so much to take a glimpse of this person, because it is really because of him being that person that it makes you want to go and look at whatever he's doing.
Right.
He's one of those people.
Yes.
You want to go look at whatever he's doing. So, again, ladies and gentlemen, our guest, Michael Douglas Carlin. Let me tell you about, so in order to set this up, I'm going to tell you about the piece that first got him over here. And it was, let me just quote, "The true and powerful story of corruption, coercion, and murders." Oh, excuse me, wrong one. That's about tonight.
It's okay.
Get excited. Let's do this. Let's take a look at the trailer for the documentary that got Michael Douglas Carlin into the studio with us, and to me helps you to understand the kind of man that he is, because in looking at the trailer for the documentary that he did previously, you have to understand the courageousness it takes. It takes a lot of courage to go down to the border with a camera.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying, people disappear for less. There's certain people you come in and say their name, just asking for them means you could die, right? So this took a lot of courage, but it sets up tonight's discussion. It gives you, I think, a great insight into the person and the character of, this is again one of his many, many projects, American Federality.
State your name for the record.
No paperwork, no nothing. Got my credentials straight off the hands of the governor.
And where were you born?
I was born in the United States. The Americans stayed on their side of the river, and we just crossed into the Mexican side. We didn't give them a chance to get away. But that was a 90-minute battle. It was hell. I met Pablo Acosta when we put him down. I met him at the end of his life.
Wow.
Again, one of the many, many accomplishments. You can go take a look, go on YouTube and search this and find this and take a look yourself. But tonight, Michael's here to talk about his current new book venture and release. Tupac 187, The Red Knight. It was all about the heist. Let me read you the little description. The powerful and compelling true story of corruption, coercion, and murder surrounding the Tupac Shakur and Christopher Biggie Smalls Wallace homicides brought to 2014. With contribution by former Los Angeles police detective Russell Poole, the original Wallace homicide investigator, Michael Carlin, author of American Federale, and Richard R.J. Bond, director of the Tupac assassination movies, take you inside the 18-year odyssey of the derailed murder investigations. Tupac 187, The Red Knight, goes back to the beginning of the investigations, the original police files, and re-examines the people and evidence who have been previously corrupted or ignored. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, let me present to you my guest, Michael Carlin.
Whoa.
All right, all right.
Thank you, team.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
It's great to be here.
And it's great to have you here.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
Man, okay, so, I would love to, first of all, tell us how you came around to this, because just bring us up to date with your life for a minute here, Michael. What's been going on with you and how it relates to this latest project, because he's a person you kind of, like I said, it's nice to know what's going on in his world to the degree he wants to share and how it led up to this project going down.
This project came to me because I was working on a humanitarian project. There was a gentleman by the name of provocateur who was the leader of the CIA hired him back in Vietnam, and he was the leader of the Laotian people.
Huh.
And he had been arrested in Thailand on murder, which he probably did commit a murder. We don't know for sure. He was convicted, he did his sentence, and when he was about to get out, they were going to send him back to his country, which would have been certain death. And I contacted the State Department, I contacted the Thai government, I got a lot of bloggers, I got a lot of people making phone calls, and we put pressure on the Thai government and on our State Department to do the right thing, and we stopped him from being deported.
Wow, for everybody, for those of you who don't know, this is not a unusual situation. Many of you don't know about what happened in Vietnam, the last days of Vietnam, where you had a similar incident, really terrible time trying to get the Vietnamese who had cooperated with the U.S. The same situation has been going on over in the Middle East also.
Yes.
So this, this stuff is all over the world. So how did this get you?
So one of the couples that I was working with called me up one day and said, "You ought to meet our relative, Russell Poole." And I said, "Sure, I'd love to meet Russell Poole." I didn't know who he was.
Right.
I had no idea.
Just meet our relative.
Yeah, meet our relative, Russell Poole. I called him up. We started talking. We had several telephone conversations. And then we had a meeting over in Venice. And we sat in a cafe. And they started telling me this story about a journalist named Chris Blanchford who was at Fox 11.
Okay.
And about a confession letter that had been written. And I was confused about this, and I said, "What? I'm not sure I really understand this, but it sounds interesting." And so Russell arranged for me to go over and see Chris Blanchford, and I sat down with him and said, "I really think instead of doing this as a documentary, instead of doing this as a feature film, this must be a book first." And one of the things that I sat down with RJ and with Russell about was about the truth. I said, "Look, wherever this leads us, whatever the truth is, that's what we're interested in. And that's all we're interested in, and let's make sure that if we find something's true, we're going to put it in a book." And both of these guys had come from a premise that Suge Knight was behind Tupac's murder.
Wow.
And
which is a common premise.
Well, but it never made sense to me because Suge Knight was in the car. It's like, would you really put yourself in that position? And so
people were saying, was he that bold to have somebody shot sitting next to him?
And you know what? He may be, but he's also not a stupid man.
Right.
And we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars back then. And so this project came to me through doing a humanitarian event. I mean, and it's pretty interesting too, is where this is going to lead full circle, I think, is, and we'll probably get into this towards the end, but, if we really want this to be solved, and we want convictions and prosecutions, then that means the entire rap community is going to have to put pressure on the city of Los Angeles, the city of Las Vegas, LAPD, and they're going to have to get this case reopened. And that means telephone calls, that means marches, that means emails, faxes, whatever we have to do. And almost in a way similar to the provocateur thing, where we put pressure on the State Department and the Thai government to get something done. And if we do that, it's going to work.
In today's political situation, I think people are probably more open for the first time to actually looking in a more constructive way at something that would have to involve police corruption. Before, I mean, I think today you have had police images as they have attempted to define their position in the Ferguson thing. So when I tell people I don't have to speak on the police, they represent themselves very well. All you have to do is go look how they represent themselves as it relates to the Ferguson, how they're willing to stand there right there in your face and tell you that they're not seeing what you're seeing. And then you can understand the context of how it even goes back to kinds of levels of corruption and the degrees of corruption. If you have any idea of the amount of drug flow that flows in this country and the amounts of monies that are involved, it's the next biggest industry to the defense trade.
Wow.
Absolutely. Wow. And I spent months poring over the LAPD case files in the Tupac and Biggie Smalls cases, and a lot of that included the Rampart scandal.
Oh, isn't that something?
And honestly, I didn't see a difference between the LAPD in the 80s and 90s and the Mexican federales that I dug into with Lobo.
Well, now that's what we wanted to set it out. Now, Michael, I want you to set that up set that up for us a little bit. So here you meet with them. What are the things that they first were telling you that were pulling you in? The things that they were bringing to you that were making your interest.
Well, the first thing is that there was new information, and I actually became a Tupac fan because of my son.
The youngster.
Oh yeah, youngster.
Youngsters.
We were on a long trip, and about an hour in on the trip, my son looked at me and goes, "Dad, I'm taking over the radio." And I looked at him and I said, "Hell no, you're not taking over the radio."
Tired of the classic rock, huh?
Oh yeah. Eagles, Foreigner,
I guess right. Okay.
Yeah.
So he
Supertramp, and he was like, "Dad, I am absolutely not listening to that music." And I go, "Well, what do you want to listen to?" And he goes, "I want to listen to Tupac." And I was like, "Hell no, I'm not listening to rap music."
Oh, wow.
Right? Well, now we got a big conflict, and we're on like a 12-hour drive. Oh. This is going to be a very bad trip if we don't work out something. So I said to him, "I'll tell you what, I will play a song that I think is going to be a song that 100 years from now people are going to play, and then you pick out a song." And we did it like that for 12 hours on this trip, and he played a lot of Tupac, and he would sit and he explained to me why he thought this was going to stand the test of time. And I became a Tupac fan, and he and I played. Even to this day when we get together, what do we play? We play the Eagles, and we play Tupac.
That sounds like a mixtape.
For someone who don't like to listen to rap.
Well,
had a lot to say.
Absolutely, and you know what? I came to love rap because
Really?
hey, it was like the real thing about what was going on
Well, in the streets.
in the streets.
Yeah.
You know, the whole thing with anytime you take a blanket genre, you kind of gonna lose, because even within that genre, there's types. My issue with rap initially was there wasn't enough music in it,
Yeah.
and once they started rapping over well done music, they kind of pulled me in. We have our biases, but you know, it's such a broad base. You know, it's like saying rock. I tell people, but rock, if you say rap and you say rock, those are very broad categories of music. With totally, from, you know, the Eagles to Zeppelin even. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I mean, and these are still stuff that a classic rock person would love, right?
Absolutely.
So Tupac has the same kind. I know I actually found too in later years, as I did with Hendrix, unfortunately, after they had died, is when I really got into Tupac, because I went looking to hear some of the stuff.
Yeah.
So what kind of stuff are you what kind of stuff are you willing to reveal now?
Well, I mean, honestly, I'm really willing to reveal anything that you guys want to hear about. I mean,
Well, I want to hear it. That's how it all kind of
Came to you.
yeah, it came. It kind of just
Like, what made you say yes?
Yeah,
and
how
take
they
it
do-
on?
yeah.
Because there's so much stuff that you could
like the
take
specific
on.
kinds of stuff.
And it's a lot of stuff that people don't want to mention in regards to that, because he's like an icon and a legend all in one.
And we don't want to push you, see, Michael. So I'm just saying, to the degrees you feel. So, like, I want to know, what did they tell you? Here you are coming in as a person. What did they say was the new evidence, or the kinds of things that it was making them think?
So in 1998, there was a confession letter that was written, and it was written by somebody who was scared that they were going to be next.
Oh.
They were going to be killed. Because in the immediate aftermath of the Tupac murder, there were other murders that happened.
Right.
You know, Yakfula was murdered in New Jersey, and there were numerous other murders that happened. It was all people who knew something about the crime.
Right.
And, you know, honestly, it's not much of a stretch to think somebody thought, hey, we may be next. And so they wanted to write and memorialize what had happened that night. And so they wrote a confession letter. And it's a little bit convoluted, and if you look on the internet, you'll find that there were some people that tried to derail the confession letter. And the confession letter actually was handed to Fox 11 journalist Chris Blatchford. And if you look at Chris Blatchford's history, he has a rich history covering the inner cities. I mean, Hispanic gangs, African American gangs, the mafia. I mean, all kinds of stories like that. And in a way, you know, Chris and I, I've only met him one time. I went over to the studio. I sat down with him. He shared with me this confession letter, gave me a copy, and told me the story behind the confession letter. And it's not anything like what you've seen on the internet from people that are trying to derail this investigation. The confession letter was handed to him, and he tried to give it to people that were in the investigation, and they just simply weren't interested.
Have they revealed the person who wrote the confession letters, Nate?
Yeah. I mean, the confession letter, the names are in the book.
Okay.
And I don't really want to say it, you know, here.
Okay.
But if you want to read it, you can look in the book and you'll see the names.
I assume that based on them coming to you, it was an evolving conspiracy, and not just like, as they would say with JFK, the single,
the lone gunman.
The lone gunman.
Which
Now today they talk about the lone wolf terrorists, which is just crazy people acting out with guns. Okay, but the lone wolves. Okay, so this thing had to imply, because the whole issue had a lot to do, or at least always was implied, the involvement of the police, even with connections, as far as we heard, with that tied in to previous corrupt police, who were involved with a sort of now infamous shootout in North Hollywood, when undercover police and an undercover narcotics officer got into a traffic confrontation
Yes.
and ended up drawing guns on each other
Now look at that.
in Hollywood because they were just gangster type of
Yeah.
folks.
Yeah.
Well, and there are connections there too. I mean, and that all connects back to Death Row Records.
Look
Right.
at that.
Yeah.
On the payroll.
And actually, conscious, there are those facts that are in it. It is a fact that Suge Knight, while incarcerated, someone at the DA's attorney was renting property from him, was like renting a beach house
Well, and here's
for like minimal money
and here's
from Suge while he's in jail.
Here's one of the myths. Here's one of the myths that we'll actually dispel today, because when you look at it, that sounds horrible, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How did that happen? I mean, how did Suge Knight get moved into Larry Longo's home in Malibu? How did that happen? It's kind of an interesting story. That home was rented by attorney David Kenner.
Oh.
And David Kenner then moved Suge in. And when things didn't work out with this whole plot to kill Suge Knight was going to be killed that night. What did they do? They dropped a dime on Suge. And they said, hey, Suge's renting Larry Longo's house. Doesn't that look horrible for Suge? And they got his probation violated in a way judges abhor.
And they certainly didn't punish the DA. See, they didn't punish the DA. They never punished them in the same ways.
No.
You don't hear that talked about.
No.
What happened to the DA who was renting?
But how did that happen? I mean, it wasn't like the DA actually sat down with Suge and said, hey, man, I'm going to rent you the house. That didn't happen.
I think it was a deal made under the table, and whether it was a plot or not, I mean, everybody's on everybody's payroll. So it's going to tie together. It's like connecting the dots. Once you dime on one person, it's going to continue downhill. And for someone to cover their ass, either you get rid of the problem, and that kills the noise, or you rat everyone out, which leads all the way to high prison levels on down to the little general, jail cells. So.
And we're in sync on that.
Right.
Well, we know corruption exists.
It's all about money.
Right.
Right.
I think the shocking thing is going to be really the degrees, and then also the degrees that the American public or the American institutions have been willing to accept it. That's the part. It's just like I've already told people, if you think that there's some bad history, wait till they start looking at the grand jury history and the history of grand juries. It's going to be full of bias because it's appointed by judges. It's inherently biased.
And our whole grand jury process really, it needs to be completely,
because again, how do these things happen, right? Again, and the way DAs work, and the lack of consistency, right? Where you could have someone charged even today with child abuse because they have smoking marijuana in their house, medical marijuana, and this is in Colorado. So
well, Mario, may I say this? You have people buzzing on my page right about now on Facebook that actually want to call in and ask him questions in regards to the Tupac case, because they're saying that you seem to be having some insight on information that the public don't know that they mentioned on my page that seems to be bullshit.
Really?
Well, give us some. You want to paraphrase some of the questions?
Sure.
Yeah, one of the ladies, she said, how is it that you are privy to that type of information where the police and the media hasn't exposed that to the public?
Well, I mean, first off, the police would never expose any information on any investigation to the public. They don't tell, they don't even tell us what they're doing, and they have no responsibility to tell us anything. Okay. We have the case files from LAPD during the Russell Poole investigation of the Biggie Smalls and Tupac murders. We have secret tapes that were made by Frank Alexander, who was the bodyguard for Tupac.
Wow.
Once his life started being threatened, he started recording all of his telephone conversations.
For insurance purposes?
I mean, he knew, hey, Death Row wants you dead. And he said, who wants me dead? Yeah, Reggie said, Death Row wants you dead. And so he started recording. We actually have all of those conversations. We have a conversation with Frank when Chuck Phillips, journalist Chuck Phillips, is asking him if he could identify the shooters in the car. And he says, I'd rather talk to law enforcement about that. He says it 3 times.
Okay.
And then you look at the Chuck Phillips article, and he says, hey, Frank Alexander could identify the shooters. I mean, you can see what was happening with all of this inside information from Death Row Records at the time.
I think the shocking thing, too, is the lack of effort on the behalf of... It's not like they are saying we're going after these leads. There's controversies because it appears that there's whole areas where people were never even approached or talked to.
And there's a reason for that, and I think the reason is because of the Rampart scandal. And we had the most corrupt police force that's probably ever been exposed in the United States, right here in Los Angeles. And they didn't want it to get blown out of proportion. But what they really should have done back then is brought it all out, aired all the dirty laundry, and then cleaned it out.
Well, no offense, this was my issue with the former police chief, even, is that you had a federal oversight, and yet they still persisted in not cooperating. The whole thing was that that they were not cooperating with the federal
consent decree.
Yeah, they weren't cooperating. And Gordon, Parks.
Yeah, Bernard Parks.
That's to me best right. Thank you, Bernard. I'm not saying the other Parks. Yeah. Bernard Parks. You know, he didn't cooperate. That was one of my issues with him. I said, why aren't you cooperating? This should be coming out, whatever it is. You should be trying to have full disclosure. So in terms of what the caller was saying, or the person in the chat room, I think the first thing you all have to recognize is that the history is that the police have never been forthcoming. That's why you're getting the things that you're hearing coming out of situations like Ferguson. They never have. And also that you would be shocked at the things they don't investigate. Even on my show, I brought out the shocking numbers that they had 75% of the rapes in LA County over like a 5-year period were not even investigated. They had almost like 1 million rape kits or something like that, over 700,000 something, sitting that had never been processed. Imagine if that's your DNA, and imagine the numbers of people and the amount and how that has to be affecting things. So when you think that what Michael's telling you, I would ask you, I'm not sure what it is you're believing in. I think as you start to learn and look at these things, as he did with American Federale, when he said, well, the police are killing as many people as the drug dealers. This is a matter, it's like there's no good guys here. It's a bunch of bad guys fighting over the shit.
Mario, BJ wants to know from social media, what made you take on Michael Carlin as far as what he's doing, and are you scared for your life? And are you scared for your life? Because you're mentioning things that people were scared to tackle. That's the question.
Well, I don't know, but I'm not. Listen, some things are hidden in plain sight because the history of this country, for those of you, when you go look at how we bamboozle people, we are the masters of hiding things in plain sight, and the masters of taking people and discrediting them. Killing them, destroying them brings too much attention. They rather just have you have a drug problem by sending you some good shit to somebody they know.
Wow.
And discredit us.
Right, they'll send you a woman with the dope, because what's that going to cost them when you got infinite budget?
Or they send over a 14-year-old.
Right.
All of a sudden you're caught in a room alone with a 14-year-old. Right. Nothing happens, but
there you
all
go.
Of a sudden
it's the perception. Yeah,
it's the perception.
So things happen, but when you do, okay, maybe this is why Michael, and at least part of why I embraced him, because first of all, the courage. I think when they do what they do, it's way less courage for me to come and talk about it. I think the courage occurred when you were doing those things. And I think part of the new world is that the internet specifically, right? Because look how it shocked them for Ferguson. The public today is rejecting traditional media. So they're more open to listening to Michael Douglas Carlin and taking at least things. And they say, well, why? Because the police aren't trying to solve it. Well, it's not solved because they don't want to solve it.
You touched on
There's no
something,
interest
Mario.
in solving. What does solving it mean? Busting the police force? Are you kidding?
Well, some people are saying yay
No,
to
they
that.
won't do that.
Yeah.
It's so bad that even the people that are halfway good will cover it up just because they have some kind of misplaced devotion to the police. I mean, I'm sure there are some people that are on the fence that have some sick notion that they're protecting the police by going with their rules of sticking together and all that kind of, you know. So this happens, as you can see in Ferguson, right? It's like when the Rodney King, I watched the policeman said, look, he's trying to slow down. He's trying to slow his arm down as no, you're not seeing it. As he's swinging, he's trying to hold back the swing.
No, exactly.
It's like he's kicking his ass to me. No, he's holding back. He's pulling. Can you see as he pulled it back up? He was pulling it away.
Okay, that's too much like Paranormal Activity. But
I was
okay.
saying they don't see it like the Ferguson. You know, the whole thing, you look at New York, too. Right. Okay, the whole thing that happened in New York. Everybody said, well, it looks like he's getting choked out by a bunch of police while he's doing this. No! He's resisting! He's resisting, and he's big and black.
Okay, well, you know, they're going to license to kill, but...
That's scary. That's scary.
Or how about Staten Island? I mean, there's one that's just clear.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I can't breathe. Come on. Uncuff the guy.
Well, there you go. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Now you get to understand why some of these things, I think what will happen is that Michael really is going to be scratching at old wounds because, like we said, all of this got to the heart of corruption, and even the degree that the LAPD was part of the spread of cocaine. See, you can't spread
cocaine.
Yeah, you have a history.
Iran-Contra.
Totally. Well, there you go.
Where did they get the funding for Iran-Contra? They sold cocaine on the streets of Los Angeles to raise money to do the Iran-Contra thing. 100% that's true. And you know what?
You said they sold it.
They sold it.
As in the stuff CIA. That they caught from other people from third world countries.
Oh yeah, this was part of this was
right?
the scandal that with Ronald Reagan.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they hit it. You know, it's interesting. For those of you who do like to read, there are papers that go back all the way to World War II when the U.S. cooperated. See, during World War II, the mafia in Italy were working against Mussolini. And that was supposedly the first connection between the mafia and our intelligence community, that it grew out of the fact that during World War II, when Mussolini was in power, that he was messing with their money.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the mob had an issue with people messing with their money and were cooperating in the U.S., and at least as far as my reading, that's the first instance. And I said even then, wait, if you use the mob, wait. If the OSS that became the CIA used the mob for intelligence, that means you could call them on the phone. That means you could call them on the phone and sit down and talk. You know where they are. You have a relationship.
Right.
The Bananos. The Bananos patrolled the docks in New York during World War II. And that's 100% verified.
So these are the kind of things. So people see what I think is actually the most appalling is that for certain areas you have so much evidence that at least something stinks that if you are just willing to stick your head in the sand, you know, I don't know, God bless you, because therein lies part of the issue, is that as you start to look and inform yourself, you may find yourself questioning things that go as far as banking. Okay, a lot of things, traditional, the Federal Reserve. Why did it ever exist? Why does the Federal Reserve? Why do you understand that a private corporation is what's actually backing your government, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. I'm just saying. That's not my and again, you don't get to know, right?
No.
Okay. I'm just saying. I don't understand. And just like when you had your recent financial scandals and talking to the people that I talked to, they all said, well, everybody kind of was playing along.
Okay.
They knew something stunk, but everybody was making money. So what I'm saying is that you need to get adjusted to the idea that scandal and corruption exists on massive levels, just like when the bank that failed in the big bank that failed in England had the accounts from Hamas and the CIA and a bunch of other drug people all together. Oh, they just work with everybody. They get together for parties. So, and you might say, well, why? Because that's how business is done in the world. Defense, weapons, you know, drugs. And so you should be looking for these kinds of things, because to me, what happens with Michaels is that, and the reason why he gets to sit here is he scrapes the underbelly. And it's the underbelly. It's so far the underbelly, it's right near the scrotum.
Oh, wow.
So it's nothing to them. Because the rest is so big and so huge, it's like, you know, the Matrix. The rest is so big that they're like, oh, you're not really that important. You're making it, we could even have you go on TV. Because we can hide in plain sight. The American public have already proven how they feel about some of these things that they already have. They're still, you know, even though they're willing to let the government say one thing, you know, they don't feel the same way as the government. The 70% believing in extraterrestrials. You know, how many people believe that Kennedy was assassinated by a group of people? Not the so that when you actually poll the public, what you find is that they believe in a lot more of the things that you actually believe in. But they just are afraid, or they're more willing to accept it.
Most people under 30 do not believe in a political party. They do not support the Republicans or the Democrats because they dismiss both parties.
As well they should.
I'm hearing that a lot.
And why?
Going towards liberal.
They get funded by the same money. So the same agenda gets pushed through.
Like I said, with Obama, was it to change? Okay, now that it's got the over, I go like, show me the change. I'm just sorry, you know. I listen, I love his speeches. I feel inspired, but they got brothers who can speak well. Okay, they got them. They got them. Yeah, read well, speak well. He will not be on my wall. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, because I say, where is the change? You could actually sit Bush, Clinton, and Obama down and really look at the money and show me a difference. Show me. If you do, it may be favoring Bush.
They want to keep us conflicted. They want us to have conflict with each other.
Yeah,
because
so they can do bigger things.
Right.
It keeps everybody distracted.
Right.
And you know what? We could solve racism right today, right now.
Well, I'm going to tell you what somebody said on a video that Mario played. What'd he say? Favorite quote? Fuck each other in one color.
Well,
and we'll be over with.
I got a better way.
Somebody sent that to me.
Yeah, right. I love it.
And I had to ask him, which I had to, because I just was curious what their nationality was, and they were Caucasian. But I just thought it was so cool the way they said. I just think we ought to fuck each other. Fuck each other
in the one color.
But we could solve it like this minute if we got everybody in America to just. Let's take that Martin Luther King quote.
Love it.
Okay? Martin Luther King said what? He said, I dream of a day when I will be judged not by the color of my skin, but by the content of my character.
Right.
So let's all just take an oath right now that we will never judge anybody by anything but the content of their character.
Sure.
And let's end this whole racism conversation today. That means everybody's equal under the law. We're not judging people based on race, gender, sexual preference, or any other qualifier. Everybody gets fair treatment under the law.
And
let's
in
do
a
that
perfect
today.
world, that would be nice.
You know,
it would be.
You know, and it would be. Even though, see, the part that, again, because people are naive, is that they have to understand is that historically, justice has never been part of the law.
No.
It's probably its most just today. Okay. But justice has never been part of law. You have to go look at the history of how even the punishments came around. You know, there was a time where there were no jails. So all punishment was corporal.
Yeah,
all
but it was
punishment.
Off with the
all
head.
Punishment was like, no, there is no jail. So we either kick your ass, kill you. There is no place
to put you.
I believe it was the Quakers who did it. It was they had the first idea of segregating people who committed crime because they didn't want to kill you, so they started segregating you, and that didn't catch on for like 100-something years. It took a while to catch on.
It's a big business now,
right? It's a huge business now.
Yeah,
and as you can see, it's an evolving problem because as a society, well, like I said, the issues are there. The issues are there.
I have a question, and I was discussing this with myself because I promised Michael I wouldn't ask. I would ask this question. As it relates to hip hop and rap, with all that has been since the birth of hip hop and rap, would you consider this particular story of Tupac and Biggie to be the all-time controversial hip hop and rap event, trauma, drama, anything bigger in the rap and hip hop community in this story, which is still basically, for the purposes of the public, unsolved?
This is the biggest story in America. This is a single story that embodies everything that we're all talking about, because we're talking about the police, which were likely involved in Biggie Smalls' killing. We're talking about we're talking about the corruption. We're talking about the influence of money. We're talking about music and the suppression of freedom of speech. We're talking about everything all encapsulated in one story, which to me makes this the single biggest event.
It's the smoking gun. See, remember with Watergate, it all happened because a security guard noticed a break-in. So it's many times the spark. And at first it was nothing, right? Oh, so they broke in and found something. Okay, but this is the smoking gun because it's what it leads to again. That the scandal, as it weaves its way, leads into places in government and exposes other things. And that's where you would want to have it nipped in the bud. And that's the part that is the most shocking. And that is why it is the smoking gun. It certainly could lead, again, to being the biggest scandal story of this country ever. And certainly since Watergate, because of the amount of corruption that's already been just alluded to. In terms of the LAPD, the whole cocaine thing, the whole Valley connection that they had going, and the whole, all of that. And then as it ties into the way it went to the gangs and the whole, just the way things were done, you start to get a feel for it. You say, well, no wonder it went nationwide. It was always intended to go nationwide.
Well, because of the East Coast, West Coast thing too, and how it influenced the young generation, and that it was something for people of young minds to gravitate towards.
And when you say
East Coast, sales, you know, I'm getting at.
When you say East Coast, West Coast, what do you mean by that?
Meaning East as in New York versus L.A.
Are you talking about specifically Biggie and Tupac?
Right. When he asked you
What's
that question.
What's so interesting is that how it relates so closely to previous COINTEL. Because let me remind America again, you had a shootout on UCLA campus between the student Black Panthers and Ron Karenga's United Slaves over who was going to be the head of the Black Studies Department. COINTELPRO was known for getting folks to fight against each other by initiating conflicts, specifically involving women. How does that look when you think about what they did to the Black Panthers to keep them separated from the other groups? It looks remarkably like the whole East-West Coast, which I think is hype. They hyped it because it gave an excuse for what they wanted to do to go down. And this is actually a repetitive pattern that one has seen from this government's agencies in the past. That's the part that scared me. I said, oh no, that's what they did here in LA with the Black, and in Chicago. It sure did work.
It worked.
It sure did work.
And
so if it worked, don't you think they're going to be copycats to mimic the same approach and
that's
try to?
What makes things the truth. You always have some truth mixed in with the lie, which is what makes the lie so much believable. But these things are historical. Historical.
Yes, it is.
There's a concept called the agent provocateur. And the agent provocateur says, I take my guy and put him on your side and have him start some shit with me. Supposedly that's what Hitler did when he invaded Poland, when he got a bunch of Jews together, put them around the border, called it an army, and invaded. Okay?
Irritating folks. Okay.
They talk about the concept of the agent provocateur, the provoking agent that's placed within.
And what do you think happened in Ferguson? I mean, honestly.
Wow.
Do you think maybe they had some people in there that were stirring some stuff up
totally.
to make it violent?
I don't doubt
it. Because what happened is, think about, no offense, sometimes when you deal with certain parts of the public, there's going to be enough of a certain element that you can go to them and always pay them to corrupt the press. That's what happened with the movement, all throughout the movement, historically, here during the 60s. That's what they did. They said that the Black Panthers was full of more informants than they had members. Okay? By the time things ended. So know that there are people out. In fact, even when they were talking revolution, they said, well, you know, if you ever think about it, you better go take out a bunch of the brothers. Then you got a chance. Because they talk about the degrees that the civil rights movement
that's always been
was compromised. Thurgood Marshall, no offense, was a friend of J. Edgar Hoover, was known to really have animosity toward Martin Luther King. It's in his bios. Wow. Is that why he's on the Supreme Court? Go look. Don't trust Mario. Go look. It's not they don't hide it. He was a friend of J. Edgar Hoover at a time when J. Edgar Hoover was doing what?
Cross-dressing, for sure.
Well, yeah. Because I had to pick.
We see you putting it out there, Mario.
I'm just saying. These are things that exist.
But a lot of people try to ignore it and act like they're delusional and don't see it. You know,
they don't want to know because that's so Machiavelli. Machiavelli wrote the lessons that told the princes when they occupied how to take over, who to kill, and he said the little man never care who rules. When you come in and kill the lead dude, lower their taxes for a little minute, give them a little extra grain, and they will welcome you with open arms.
Slowly tighten the ticket.
And then you go right back to what you was doing and raise the taxes, and now you got everything. And then when you leave, you tell the dude you put in charge, now if I have to come back, I'm going to do to you what I did to the guy in front of you.
Right.
So just make sure you send me my money. Send me my money.
Wow.
Send me my money. Well, and this is the basis of government today.
And leading to what you wrote about and the stuff that you're finding. It's funny that how Mario is addressing it with that. And it seems like that's kind of what's been going on throughout the centuries up to this point now.
Well, and I think we have an opportunity. I mean, look what happened with the LA sheriffs recently.
Oh, God.
And, 1920 indictments. Sheriff Lee Baca pushed out, and there may be indictments now with either Sheriff Lee Baca or Tanaka, and now Jim McDonnell is in. And I know Jim McDonnell. I actually think Jim is a really good guy. I think if we ever have an opportunity to clean things up, now is the opportunity. We have Ron Galperin, who's the city controller. He's actually a pretty good guy. Mike Fuhrer, the city attorney, actually a pretty good guy. A politician, a career politician. Eric Garcetti's the mayor. He doesn't need a scandal. I think if we all started mobilizing people to make phone calls, to do emails, to social media, and say, we want this investigated and we want everything released. And one of the things we're going to do is we are going to release all 15,000 pages of the information that we poured through with this book so that everybody can see what we saw.
Which book?
In Tupac 187.
Oh, the one that's...
Yeah, Tupac.
Yeah, hold that up.
Now, everybody, I have the picture here. I went and got it on Amazon, too. Take a look.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Here we go. So everybody can see.
Tupac 187. Yeah. We're going to release all of the information that we poured over, and we hope that everybody that's been involved in this case that's written about it, that's blogged about it, that has any information is going to release their information too. Because we think that is going to lead to convictions, prosecutions, and closure for everybody on this.
So
we need closure.
This is the book they would call tell-all book.
I think
Drop a dime book, as the streets would call it. You're going to actually drop names, which you are actually printed in this book, that's going to wake up folks that are sleeping.
Well,
it made Amazon's list of 2014's best books of the years.
Look at that.
It was just released, everybody, December 20th.
2014.
So it just came out. So already, you know, if first of all, within the community that some might argue, certainly not myself, that there is a degree of complacency. Those of us who children of the 60s kind of remember when black Americans had a whole kind of different posture, I'm sad to say. And that when you look at today's political movements, they are really virtually leaders in none of this, unfortunately. And is it because of the president? Because you have an African-American president that then people relax? Okay. But if I think of things like this, start to get folks to being more political and to start questioning, if this could be the spark that gets you to start looking at other things and maybe getting more involved in looking at government, just starting, besides just talking at the barbershop, to actually go out and read a little bit and develop some opinions based upon the information that exists. That is the big, terrible scandal about America. That you can hide information in plain sight, and they've proven it. They have proven over and over again that you can hide information in plain sight, and they go, we don't care, because the people are too stupid to do anything, to ask any questions. They won't question the financial scandal. They'll just take whatever we say. They won't question a war on terror where you never actually declare any war, and the person you're fighting is everywhere at anything.
And
so what are you doing?
we're afraid of the boogeyman right now.
Right.
We are. We got drones flying all over the world doing drone strikes. We're not at war with any of these
We're
countries.
the ones killing, and that you don't hear any discussion of whether there's any negative feedback that we get because of our policies. Even if you don't believe it is, how can you have zero discussion? You have zero. It is so politically hot for you to even suggest that some of what we're experiencing has to do with our policies. They actually are willing to say publicly that people are killing this out of jealousy.
Right.
And the American public, I said, go read something. That's not been my experience, that people wage wars out of jealousy. That's not been my experience. So I need you to be at least a little bit more informed, and that you have policies. Or whether or not, do you care that we torture people? Do you care? Does it make any difference to you that we pick people, or that they say that less than 10% of the folks in Guantanamo, where we've held people in jail in Cuba indefinitely, that less than 10% of them have provided any information? But they can't let you go, because once they have you in jail like that for a couple years, if you want a terrorist, when you went in, you damn sure terrorist, and so are your people back home. And they know that. And so we can snatch people off the street and take them to countries where we're not even supposed to have real political relationships. So I say this, like Michael, so don't think that what Michael's saying to me, I go, once again, I commend him. And that's why I gave you also the examples previously with American Federale, where he was willing to take his camera and go down to the... Oh, I wouldn't even go down there, and I'd be scared shitless, take a woman. Somebody might like her, we all dead. I'm saying, hey, that's it. 40 students just disappeared. 40-something students just disappeared. Because someone has a bad day, they have a bad day, that's your ass. Down there in Juarez. Okay.
Well, and likely killed by the government. I mean, straight up.
Right.
And really, what's the difference between the corruption in the in the federales and the corruption that we saw in LAPD 80s and 90s? I mean, evidence going missing out of lockers. You know, cocaine, 80 kilos of cocaine just goes missing. You know, and look at Compton. Compton police was shut down.
Yes, they were, and the sheriff department took over because they didn't like what was going on. So they just totally moved them out.
But
I mean, I lived there for 2 years.
They moved them into the sheriff's department, which now has this problem.
Bigger problem.
Again,
yeah.
Not conspiracy, problems, facts. The conspiracy has to do with whether or not you believe the source or cause. But there's no doubt that you have documented problems, facts, things that have occurred that don't add up. You should go look. Everybody, take a look. Tupac 187, The Red Knight, available. Here's Amazon. You know, I love Amazon. Best books of 2014. Go in there and get it. Get your copy. And again, like from what Michael hinted at, the first product leading into the documentary, you know, because of his history. You know, I have to smile on that we would expect something, but hopefully we'll get a documentary out of it also.
Renee said hi, Mario, and she said hello, Michael, and she said, why is it that you're not fearing for your life due to all the information that you know and that you're dropping names in the book? That's going to start a lot of BS.
Well, I mean, let's face it, the cartels want to kill me.
Oh, Lord.
I ride a motorcycle on the streets of L.A. Take a number.
Oh. There you have it.
They're like, again, hiding in public. Many examples out there today, believe it or not, when you go look. Hiding in public. Everybody, go take a look. I told you, again, on Amazon, go take a look. Go get involved. Read it and let it lead you into other things. Once again, I want to thank our guest, Michael Douglas Carlin. Michael, so any other things, any other points? I mean, you got to have some other points you want to make.
Of course. Here you guys go.
No, he does not have that letter. That's the letter.
That's the letter.
Wow.
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 Okay, everybody want to know what the letter says.
You guys feel free to post
read
this.
the book.
Feel
That's
free
true.
to post the letter.
It's in the book. That's right.
Yeah,
it's in the book.
It's up to you guys if you want to post it or not. But it is in the book. It's
Okay.
unredacted in the book.
So you purchased the book.
Yeah, and this was not leaked by us. This was leaked by the Los Angeles Police Department.
Oh, okay.
So we
In-house.
we got this letter. Russell Poole and RJ went and had a meeting with 4 people at LAPD, and one of them was a deputy chief, and that letter was promised never to hit the streets, and then on August the 18th it was released by a blogger. And it was leaked by LAPD. We put special markings on it.
Okay.
And it was leaked with those markings.
Wow.
And 6 days later, Suge was shot.
There'll be names that you will recognize. See, this
wow.
What's interesting is that, again, some of these names have been linked throughout to certain degrees, but either people couldn't pull the connection. There were very vague connections to other people. So as you read the letter, some of you may recognize some of the names that may be mentioned within it. And which were some of the, because a lot of times, like I said, a lot of times the truth is hiding right in your face, right out there.
Is anybody trying to, that you actually have mentioned the names in the book, that's actually has harassed you or addressed you in a way that tried to say that they would sue you if
nobody's harassed me in any way? Nobody's threatened to sue. I want to be respectful about how I deal with this information.
Right. I mean, I'm asking because a lot of people don't know.
We originally tried to take this to LAPD and do the right thing. They leaked it. They did the wrong thing. But we also still think this just needs to be investigated. There was a campaign that started. It started August the 18th when this was released to discredit this letter. And so the blogger said, "Hey, it was written by a child molester." All of that is not true.
Okay.
And I get my information direct from Chris Blatchford. What he told me about this letter, and the circumstances surrounding the letter are in the book.
Okay.
The myth about it being discredited, that's all dealt with in the book. This letter really does need to be investigated, and LAPD needs to investigate it because it's likely that the conspiracy to kill Tupac started in Los Angeles.
So could this be reopened based on your book and the information you put in there?
We think this is a roadmap to open the investigation.
So it is possible to actually happen sometime this year?
Absolutely.
Is there a movie that's in the making that you are taking on as well?
There's absolutely no movie in the works at this point. You know, honestly, we would like to just see this investigation happen. I mean, I'm one of 3 people that wrote this book, and to me, I don't think it's going to be a huge money maker. I don't think books right now are not necessarily a good way to make money. What I'm most interested in is the social justice aspect of this, and I would like to see people mobilized to go.
And
how many books have you sold so far on Amazon? Do you have a number for that?
I don't have a number.
And I would say that it's doing really well. You got high ratings on it.
Well, from the reviews.
From the reviews, so that's a good start.
And I will remind everybody that was why I started off this show the way that I did, because credibility is everything. And were this something that was coming from someone else, I myself would not have paid it the same attention at all. Remember, that's part of why I showed you the trailer that I did about Michael's previous work with American Federale, so you can know that he has a history of taking risks, of doing things that are unpopular and that are not financially, certainly not making him rich in any kind of way.
Right.
And so he has that history, and that's why I did it that way, because I anticipated that those would be the questions. So again, if you want to know who he is, then you may have to go watch
his Wikipedia.
American Federale.
Yeah.
You may have to go look at that, which is going to shock you again when you look at, still imagine how our government, because since Mexico is our satellite, they don't like to say that, but they can't do anything. They can't do anything without our permission. Neither we used to say the whole hemisphere, right? Okay, so these things are proven. So no, to me, that's why I wanted to say, and why I was so willing myself, Mario Hemsley, Pack Stereo TV, to go. It was never a question of embracing the works that he done, because I know of what he's done previously. So I invite you to go take a look at American Federale. Take a look at that. Then come back and look at this work too.
Take a look at
Tupac 187, The Red Knight.
Let's see what you think.
It's an interesting book.
And take a look at Rise of Night as well.
That's right, and you have
Rise of Night is all about humanitarian stories.
That's right. He has. Come on.
Here.
I told him to.
Yeah, I know. Pass this around, and I'm gonna hold that one. That book there.
Here.
Yeah.
And here's the Prescription for Peace.
So go up there. Here. Michael Douglas Carlin.
These are for you guys.
That's right.
Thank you.
Like it.
I want you to understand, this is a man. Wow. This is not fly by night. He's done other work, and it ain't about Tupac.
Okay. Well, that's the headliner.
That's
there.
What I'm saying.
It's going to grab people's attention.
Those are totally legitimate questions, and I would invite people to use those same scrutinies for everybody they come across. I invite you to do that, because that's how you're going to not believe the one bullet theory and a bunch of other things, or like how the Soviet Union just one day fell over and we act like we didn't even know it was coming. One day you realize your biggest enemy one day just tipped over and fell on his face, and they were like, oh, we didn't know. So I guess all that defense bill that we did just recently, yeah, maybe we didn't need it, but it's good to have it. It's good to have it. Yeah. Jobs. That's
wrong. That's wrong. I have about 20 seconds from Michael. I said every time he comes over here, most of the time people don't realize what we have on the wall as a gift from Michael.
Oh, that's right.
And understand the relevance in this. As he came over here the first time to visit us, he actually presented us with something that I don't know if we've yet earned so far. So please tell them about that weapon, although it has history, about what you're holding in your hand there, my friend.
This right here is a Civil War sword, and it looks like it's pretty beat up. I'm pretty sure that it's seen some battle, and we got this sword off of eBay. And you know, nobody was bidding on it. I saw a sword on eBay. Some of you may know I was made a Knight of Malta years ago, and we took, you know, things into war-torn countries, you know, many times, Nicaragua and Mexico a number of times, and
again a brother with some history,
and Philippines, and you know, Nigeria, Niger, you know, a lot of different places. And the upshot is that I believe that we are at that point where we can beat our swords into plowshares. And that's actually a biblical quote that comes right out of the Bible. It talks about Christ, and it talks about the beating of swords into plowshares. This Civil War sword is now used to give people the oath that they will never discriminate against any human for any reason. And so, in a way, that's how you take a sword, and that's how you beat it into a plowshare. And the oath is actually in Rise of Night.
The book that Mario was holding.
That's right. Everybody take a look here. I have it right here again. Take a look. And you can find it online. Rise of Night, the Need for Knighthood in the Modern World. Inspiring a prescription for peace. So remember, I think again, the context from which Michael operates. See, when he goes to look at something like Tupac, that's why I look at it differently. See, does it make sense to you all? Because he has this kind of history. These are the kind of things that he's been a part of. This is his history, his life history. And so sometimes, well, most times, folks like him cannot sing their own song. And so here at Pack Stereo, we consider it our honor to sing their song.
All right. That's what
Congratulations,
I'm talking about.
man. Congratulations.
All right,
Like
everybody. Michael Carlin, where's my claps? Michael Douglas Carlin. Well, thank you all for tuning in. First Pack Stereo TV. Live.
Get it, Mario.
That's right. 2015.
All right.
Starting out on the right foot, getting relevant, inspiring us to look deeper, because remember, we must enjoy the journey, because that's what matters, not the destination. We'll get it right. Thank you for tuning in.
You make me feel. Now slide your key in. Ooh, it gives me chills. And with your engine trapped between my thighs, it's a power rush, a burning rush. You make me wanna fly. Oh, in and out of this traffic jam, dangerous and without a plan. Fill me up, boy, and let me ride. Crazy love, it's a crazy love. Feel the wind going through my hair. So alive, boy, and I'm so scared. Never knew love could move so fast. Crazy love, it's a crazy love. Pour it on, boy. Take me to the night. And ain't no stopping. So what's the use in trying? Destination, baby, all I know is that you and me were meant to be. Never let me go. Out of this traffic jam, dangerous and without a plan. Fill me up, boy, and let me ride. Crazy love, it's a crazy love. It's crazy, going through my head. So alive, boy, and I'm so scared. Never knew love could move so fast. Crazy love, it's a crazy love. What's the use in trying? Crazy love. Give me chills. What's the use in trying? Crazy love. Give me chills. I love. What's the use in trying? Crazy love. Ooh, gives me chills. What's the use in trying? Crazy love. Ooh, gives me chills. I like the way that you make me feel.